that I needed to start something for guys like this, because there was a big crisis of masculinity. Right. There was this crisis of victim mindset. I had the victim mindset originally, right? And so that's when I really started building that. I'd started reading books because I hadn't really read books before. And I was reading about 50 to 60 books a year. And then I realized, wow, this was really all the stuff. Most people aren't going to read this, but I can condense a lot of this information, what I'm learning, and teach it to guys instead of them having to read 50, 60 books a year.
During this 10 years, you built up your wealth. You're a numbers guy. You realized it doesn't matter if I make 175 a year, I'm not going to be a millionaire. It's going to take 10 years, maybe.
Right.
And so you did the math, and then you got interested. You bought some real estate, started building that up, got your passive income coming that you could go, okay, I'm 33. I've got other options. You did your book, you got that. I want to know when the physical transformation came into play. When did you start taking care of yourself physically during that 10 years?
Yeah. So actually there were two phases of it, because when I was in high school, I made like the first physical transformation. I got on the track team, wrestling, played some football. Like around my sophomore year, I started lifting weights. I gained like 50 pounds over the summer, and I became, pretty big at that time from lifting weights. But right after college, I would say I sort of went downhill. I started being lazy again. I was programmer. I wasn't caring about my fitness. And it was because a lot of the confidence I had was fake confidence. It wasn't really, I hadn't really transformed myself. I knew how to like transform myself from an outward appearance, but I didn't change my identity. So it didn't stick, because I still felt like the fat, lazy programmer guy. Instead of what happened though, after that was when I was probably, I think around, it would have been about 30. I remember going to the clothing store and going to buy size 46 pants. And that's where, because up until that point, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm still this super buff, fit guy, right? Because in high school, I was like at the end of high school and college, and I was like, oh, I just got a little bit of a stomach, right? And then when I buy 46 size pants, I'm like, no, you're a fat ass, John. Like, this is not. You're
my jacket. That's my jacket size.
And so I couldn't deny it at that point, and I kind of had this sort of come to Jesus moment where I was like, look, John, if you continue down this path, you're not gonna, I always have this thing. Everyone thinks they're gonna be a rock star someday, right? Like we always have in our head, like, oh, someday I'm gonna be like rich, or I'm gonna be a celebrity, or what I mean. And it's like, no, it's not gonna happen. And so I had this illusion in my head that, oh yeah, someday I'll lose some weight or whatever. I'll get in shape. Or thinking that I'm already this buff, confident guy, and I'm not, right? So I kind of said, okay, look, here's the proof. Like, you're buying 46 size pants. You need to do something if you want to change your life around. And so that's when I got on the path, and I was like, okay, this stops today. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to start really hustling my butt, because if I really want to be successful, if I really want to have confidence, I need to actually make this happen. And that was the transformation. It took me I was about 300 pounds at that point. And in about 7 months, I dropped over 100 pounds.
Wow.
And now I was real skinny at that point.
Now, what age are we again? What age are we at? Because I know you kind of
that was around 30, like 30,
okay.
31, about when that happened. So this was like right before, or before I had retired and really changed that mindset. And that part of the change of that mindset was what accelerated my wealth building, to really hustle and to be able to retire. Because within that 5-year time period, like basically, between, let's see, when I was 28, I was fat, extremely fat, like 300 pounds, overweight, lazy, broke, right? Not really, like my net worth was probably $100,000 or less, and shy, didn't have social skills. But then within that 5-year time period, I went from that to a multi-millionaire, running businesses, in shape, running marathons, like all of that, just within that 5-year period. So
Very cool. So when I found John, he was already he'd been interviewed on this for his real estate accomplishments. That's how I found him. And then I go in, I watch some Simple Programmer, and he's, hey, everybody, take off your shirt and let's be a man. I forget what the program was,
Yeah.
but it was funny. He had quite an audience too. It was pretty funny to watch some of the reactions going in there. But super fit at that time. So now here you are. He transformed. He took Simple Programmer, and then he created Bulldog Mindset. And the reason for that is total change of topic, no more computer questions so much, right? And it's all about masculinity, and I'm looking in, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but assertiveness, right? And just confidence, right? Because even in my own, I got to say, even in my own experience, I realize there's so little confidence out there.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you some questions about that too. So I now understand now how you morphed into it. It was your audience that kind of morphed into it in your personal experience.
Right.
And so what would you say? Uh, is the big if you're going to name 5 things in order, what are the
Okay.
biggest concerns with the people that you say, is it women, is it getting a better job, is it assertiveness, is it being an introvert and not liking it, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, number one, I think, is women. Most guys, especially today, the way that society is, and the loss of masculinity and the confusion about masculinity, it's really become a winner takes all game. I mean, it always was, but it's become even more so with dating apps, with Instagram and things like that. If you're not a top 5% guy, you have very bleak dating options, to be honest with you, right? There's more like 25, 30-year-old, 40-year-old virgins than there've ever been. It's bad. It's bad. That's why it's like you have to dial in and get this stuff. And this is why it's a huge concern for many guys. And I understand it, because yeah, it sucks if you don't got the stuff figured out. And there's very few people teaching it the correct way. So that's probably the number one concern for most of these guys. Now that's, underlying that is because there's the things that people think that they want, and then there's things that they actually need, right? Because they
Right.
think, it's like a doctor. I'm almost like a doctor diagnosing. It's like, okay, well, my knee hurts. Well, that's not actually your problem. Your problem is the way that you're exercising, or there's like a bone problem. You see what I'm saying? There's something underneath that. And so, what I would say the guys I work with think they need is they think they need women. They think they need to get rich. That's probably the second thing. They think that they need to have confidence, which they do. They need to have confidence, but they're more concerned about really, I would say, getting women, getting money, getting six-pack abs, right? But what they actually need is they need to get rid of the victim mindset. That's number one. Because if you get rid of the victim mindset in someone, and you teach them the growth mindset, the bulldog mindset, and that they can accomplish whatever they put their mind to, that solves all the problems, right? And you have to have that in order to. So that's number one, what they need. Number two, what they need is they need to develop their interpersonal skills, their people skills, right? To be able to communicate, because everything in life that you want, someone has it, and you have to get it from them. That's so critical, and so many people don't realize that, especially the programmers that I work with. And then probably number three, if I had to name it, is their ability to learn, to teach themselves, to grow, and the habit and routine of doing that, to stop being lazy, essentially, to read books, to work on improving themselves and growing themselves. Those are really the three things that they need the most.
When you talk about that, it's funny because even as a young man, the first email that I had, and I wasn't that young when I got an email, I'd been around a while, but and it was a friend of mine, and we were going to start a company, and it was Mowaka, MOWOCA, and that stood for money, women, and cars. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
and money was my number one thing, and
Yeah.
women's was certainly the one, right? Cars I didn't care about, but my buddy did. But
Yeah.
anyways, and that was like my walking mantra. And I'm wondering if do you tell people, does a mantra come into mind? Do you ever use that in your stuff?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest, I've got a few different ones that I talk about, but probably the biggest one is trust the process, right?
Mm.
This is, and I had t-shirts made with my other company with Simple Programmer, because this was so critical, is it's because if you remember that, which is basically like figure out what you need to do in order to achieve your result, and then don't worry about the results, just do the thing over and over again, right? It's like growing a YouTube channel, right? What do you need to do? I mean, can you control the results whether people watch your channel? No, you can't. But what you can do is you can make a video every day, or you can make a video, whatever, you know what I mean? And if you trust that if I do this and I continue this for a couple of years, that I'll have a YouTube channel. Or even investing in real estate is, right? It's like when I first started investing in real estate, I didn't have a great plan, but I knew if I bought one property every single year, that in 30 years, I'd be rich. That's like, and so I just trusted that process and kept doing that. And pretty much everything that I've done in life, I've had to trust the process. So that's kind of the mantra that I recite.
Mine is easy to do, hard to undo, because I try not to get myself into jams, things I don't want to. It's just, it is easy to do, hard to undo. Preach it all the time.
That's good.
So you want to demolish the victim mindset,
right?
And how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first, there's a few different things that I look at. The first one is getting people to let go of expectations, right? We have all these expectations in the world, how people should be, how people should treat us, how the women should like us, that, all these things that because I'm a nice guy, because I'm a good guy, I deserve this, because I work hard, I should get money. All of these things are expectations that are ridiculous because we have no control over them. So by releasing the expectations, then we don't expect that things are going to be handed to us, and then
Sure.
we realize that if we want something, we have to take responsibility. So I try to get guys to let go of those expectations, to realize those expectations.
Well, you won't be disappointed, right? It's fair to say,
right.
if you don't have unrealistic, you'll never be disappointed, and then things just kind of happen naturally. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, or whatever happens, that's kind of the second part of it, which is acceptance, right? It is what it is, right? Most of the problem why people think life is unfair, they waste their time fighting the unfairness of life or in their circumstances, is because they haven't accepted it, right? If you just accept it, then you can get to the point of actually trying to decide how can you optimize life for yourself, right? To do what you can do. So, the whole thing is to change the focus, because most people's focus in life is on what's happening in the news, what kind of bad thing happened in their life, all kinds of what this person said about them or did to them and all this stuff. And all of that focus is a complete waste of time, because none of that amounts to anything. Instead, I try to say, okay, accept all that stuff. Don't have expectations. People are going to call you names. They are going to treat you poorly, whatever. People can do whatever they want to do. Instead, given what it is, accept whatever it is. Let's focus on what can you actually do in this very moment to make a step forward in the direction towards what you want to do. Like, let's take all your energy, instead of bitching and whining and complaining and worrying about life is unfair. Let's just say, okay, yes, life is unfair. Fine. Good. All right. Done. Now, what can we do? How can we get to where we want to get to? Because no one cares. And really, the thing is, no one cares about you. Right, that no one cares about your hopes, your dreams.
Nobody cares more. Yeah, nobody cares more than you. Correct.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so assertiveness, right? I'm guessing that assertiveness falls in here somewhere, about being assertive. Don't have to be aggressive. A lot of people confuse assertive and aggressive. They're not the same. Assertive. I'll just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of people confuse it, and same with masculinity, like thinking you have to be this guy that's like a bully and an asshole. But it's assertive is just simply saying what you want and not being afraid to say that. And that works in business. It works in relationships. It works, in fact, all the skills. That's the interesting thing about this, is it's like, you take like the dating skills, right? It's just marketing. It's just smart. It works for building a business. Like, if you want to be a good marketer, it's the same exact skill set, right? There's so many things that overlap, but the assertiveness is just being direct and saying what you want. And, when you do that in regards to women, they appreciate it. They want a man that says what he wants, that doesn't try to hint and act, talk like a woman. They want a man that says, okay, this is what I want. And the same thing in business. There's so many times I found in business where you just ask for what you want, right? Instead of just accepting what people give. And in my job, I've always said, all right, this is how much I want to be paid. right? A lot of people say, oh, this is what I've been given, or in business, no, this is how much it costs. This is what I want, or come buy this thing. This is how you make the sale. You can't make the sale by just saying, okay, well, if you like this thing, then come get it. He's like, no, this is the best thing ever. Go buy it.
Yeah. And so John has a membership, and I can imagine that these guys all share with each other that are within your group, and everybody gets confidence from that. They can identify with each other. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the membership is really, I do a weekly video I rotate through the topics of mindset, fitness, finances, and dating. And then I've got a Facebook group and then a Discord server. And the whole idea is that you have to be around, if you want to become a strong man, you have to be around strong men. And that's what we're missing in society today. So I try to give the training and create that environment where guys can be around other guys that are improving themselves. Because most of us, we live in an environment where, I remember when I first started to invest in real estate, right? I remember having a conversation with my dad. My dad was like, "You're a fucking idiot." He hung up on me. He's like, and I went to my work and I sit in my cubicle and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to buy this property, this rental property." And my coworkers are like, it's a scam.
It's
You
a
can't.
scam. Yeah.
I'm like, how's it a scam? They're like, no, it's a scam. You can't just think that you're going to buy a property and rent it out and you're going to make money on that's no, it doesn't work that way. I'm like, okay, same thing with business, right? I started a business. I started YouTube videos. I remember, and I got messages on Facebook. Why are you like you're embarrassing me? Like, you're embarrassing yourself. Like, why are you trying to tell people? Who do you think you're the authority to tell people how to live or what to do, or to solve,
the naysayers. Yeah, the naysayers are the worst. Yeah.
So you need to have an environment of people that are not crabs in the bucket pulling you down, and that's what I tried to create. Is like, because in most people's reality, me and you, we live in a different reality, right? And we have people that believe it, that understand it, that are not trapped into this robotic system. But most people live in that system, and everyone they know is in that system. And so as soon as they try to get out of it, people bring them down. So Bulldog Mindset is kind of designed to be like, okay, look, no, you can actually accomplish all this stuff. Everyone else is crazy. Like, this is the real reality. So get around people that believe this reality, and that's how you change your life.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've talked in the past too, but even when you're talking right now, I have a mentorship and I have people and it's all about real estate. I just teach people how to make money, and in real estate, but there's so much of the same things that are the same. That's universal. Yeah. Trust yourself. Every personality is different. You can be assertive. You're a different person. You have a different personality. You have different qualities, and you each have different superpowers, right? You really, it could be either you're beautiful or handsome or whatever, it could be that you just got a great personality, or it could be, and it's interesting. One of the things that came to mind when you were talking right now, and I'm going to ask you if you can think of a milestone or a pivotal point where you kind of like, wow, that's a light bulb moment. And I'll tell you about mine real quick. I remember I was self-employed. I was 20 years old. I was in my CPA's office, and I was doing okay, not great, but I was doing okay. But I'd already bought a piece of property, and I could see that, hey, I was feeling confident. And some guy had come in, and there's a pretty girl I was talking to, and she worked for the main accountant. And some guy starts, he's an older guy, he's, I'm 40, and I'm 20, and he comes over and he's like, and I said, hey, can you excuse us for a moment? And then I just went back to talking to her, and she just all of a sudden started swooning over me. And then I hear her say, oh yeah, she was so impressed that you told that guy to just dismiss that guy, and it was nothing. I didn't even think twice about it.
Right.
That's just being assertive. He's being rude. I'm just saying, hey, give us a minute, and that's not even being aggressive, but she was so blown away by it. And then, anyways, and yeah. So it's just interesting how just something that you don't even think about, and it's really a nothing thing, but it actually is a big thing. In this case, it impressed a girl in a way that you would never have thought so otherwise. Well, what can you share on that similarly?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of some instances. I mean, well, here's one. I remember that's a similar thing, with relate to women as well. As I remember being at this nightclub one night, and it's going around talking to girls and stuff, and I had this thought in my head. I was like, well, I should just tell instead of going over there, I should be like, hey, come over here. And so I did that. I saw this girl. I looked at her and I was like, hey, come over here. And she came over there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It was like, I was like, shit. I was like, damn, like I could just tell people what to do.
yeah,
I could just say what I want. And then there you go, and that interaction went really well. It's like, and then I realized I was like 90% of the time that's going to work. Like if you believe it, like if you say, hey, come over here. No, but if you're like, hey, come over here.
Right.
You say
well,
that
then
to someone,
you got to know then you got to know what to do when they come over.
Yeah.
That's lesson 2. But so it's funny you say that too, because I remember, because I worked so much. I mean, I remember just working so much that I didn't even have a female in my life there for a year at 21, because I just was putting my nose to the grindstone, working, making money. But I went out one night and I'm sitting there and I see these 2 just beautiful girls come in, walk up, and they're sitting at the corner of the bar, one on each axis, talking to each other. And I watched these men one at a time walk over. Hey, you want to dance? I don't even know exactly what they're saying, but at their, hey, you want, and they're turned down, and the men keep walking away. One asks the blonde, one asks, keep over and over and over, and there's dancing going on over here. Well, I thought, look, these girls don't want to dance. So I walked over and I said, hey, how you doing? And I go, hey, can I just talk with you guys some? And she goes, oh yeah, sit down. Next thing you know, I'm sitting with them and we talk for an hour, and I'm not the best looking guy, not the best shaped guy, anything in that room. And shoot, they both come home with me. They're married, and it wasn't about even nothing sexual. They just wanted to be out. And they go, it's so nice talking to you, Tom. They go, everybody keeps trying to split us up, divide us. They come over and say, hey, can I take you away from your girlfriend, in essence?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what they're saying. And then we can, and so, it's wonderful. You come over and you just came over to talk to us, and it ended up being an awesome night, just, and of just great conversation. And, but again, you got to think, right? You got to think it through too. I mean, how much analysis do you have people go through in the process of, being assertive? And, because like you say, people can say, hey, get over here. And that may not work too well, but, but it could also, depending on how you deliver it too, by the way.
Yeah. I think it mostly comes as a byproduct of having an inner sense of validation instead of seeking external validation. Because it's just like you said, in your instance, where you just dismissed the guy because you didn't even think about it, right? If you're trying to think about these things, it's not gonna work, because you're doing something instead of being something. And so a lot of it just comes from, as you establish a new identity for yourself and you have a high value of yourself, then you start doing things that someone who has a high value of themselves would do, which would be things like tell someone to come over here instead of going over there and asking their permission to, to engage with them, or like, doing stuff like that, or saying, hey, this is what I want, asking for the sale, all those type of things that assertiveness comes, or saying no, right? One of the things that actually I do as a exercise for a lot of the guys I coach is I have them, I tell them, okay, your exercise for this week is I want you to say no to things that you would even say yes to. Just say no and don't give an explanation. Just say no, right? Someone asks you something simple like, hey, could you move over there? Could you grab me that thing? Just say no.
Yeah. No, I understand 100%.
And you get used to it. It's like, okay. And then just, you don't get to explain or anything. You just say no. Right?
People hate to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, how people can read when somebody is about to say no, and then they start taking actions to keep that no from coming out of their mouth.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in other words, say, well, if you start with well instead of no, and I tell people the same thing, really. I say, when you don't want to do something, first thing out of your mouth, tell my kids this. I say no. Apologize afterwards. Okay. Exactly. In other words, because when you start apologizing to his, well, I would, but I'm busy Saturday. Oh, well, we can do it Sunday. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, yeah, that's interesting. So back to the core things that you're teaching and the man problems. We've got women, money, assertiveness, confidence, and self-improvement, right?
Yeah.
And what are, did you ever read the book Gail Sheehy's Passages? Well, she was, this is a long time ago. I was going through, I'm a social, but she was talking about how you can go through these, tough events at different times in your life. And there really is no, like you said, there's all these 40-year-old virgins out there. Her
Right.
point was same thing. You can get your heart broken at 18, you can get your heart broken at 40. And
Right.
it may be the first time for both of you at
Oh, I
that
see.
age.
Yeah.
And And so do you have a demographic for the age range of the men that are primarily in your membership?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly like 20 to 30, but there's also, guys that are above 30, 40, 50 that are in there. It's just mostly the younger guys that really need the guidance that I'm focusing towards right now. So
And so how about how do you I mean, I understand you're giving them the foundation about saying no. And what does that lead to
when they
primarily?
say when they
Yeah.
say no, when
Yeah.
they learn how to say no, that leads to them being comfortable with disappointing people and not relying on other people's validation or approval for them to do actions, right? Most people's worlds and their choices in life are based on how it will make other people feel, not how what they want. And so that really is, the step to assertiveness is to stop putting everyone else first and to start putting your wants and needs first. And then you can because you can't serve others if you don't do that, right? You have to, because you can only give what you have, so you can't give what you don't have. And so if your needs aren't being met, then you cannot actually give. You can only give up to the amount that you actually feel your needs are being met yourself. So
Okay. And so apply that to money and then apply that to women. Just an example.
yeah, okay. So looking at it in terms of money, the easiest way I could look at it is in terms of sales, right? So many people, when I help them to start a business, they're afraid to ask for sales. They're afraid to say, hey, buy this. They don't want to be aggressive with their sales pages. They don't want to be assertive. They don't want to ask for the sale. And so, they're afraid of someone thinking that they're trying to make money, or they're afraid of them saying no. And so when they drop that, then they start becoming a lot more successful in business, because they're not afraid of rejection. They're not afraid. They don't need the validation. It's like, oh, here's what I'm selling. If you don't like it, well, I don't care. You can get lost.
Yeah.
This is what the deal is. So that helps them there. And then as far as with women, it's a huge thing, whether dating or in a relationship, right? So what happens many times with men, especially in relationships, is the woman disrespects them, and they don't say no, they don't assert themselves, they just take it. And then if there's any formula for getting a woman to not be sexually attracted to you, it's that as soon as she can boss you around, as soon as you don't stand up for yourself and don't assert yourself,
Yeah.
she like loses attraction
Respect,
for you.
right?
Yeah.
It's confidence. That's really what I've come across more than anything.
Yeah.
Confidence is like crack. I mean, for when it comes to, and I've never done crack, but for the record, but in as much as it's addictive, it's attractive. I mean, when you
Yeah.
have confidence, it seems to change everything. And like you talk about, when you say the power of saying no, it's like a risk reward. I use that term a lot. Risk reward. Like my daughter says, I want to get a picture and she wants to, hang off the edge of a cliff. I'm saying, hey, no, the risk
Yeah,
and reward is way out of sync here. Okay. But asking a pretty girl out on a date, and because that's what you want, she
right.
says no. Well, no surprise there. But the risk reward is minimal, right?
Yeah.
Is that in terms of how you kind of put it?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's the same thing in business, right? Like you're saying, like so many times, I always say, ask for the moon, right? I've had so many situations where I've asked some ridiculous amount of money, and then they just say yes,
Yep.
and or some ridiculous discount, and they say yes. I mean, sometimes they say no, it doesn't matter, but you ask for what you want, and then sometimes you
And
get it,
right.
but you can't get it if you don't ask for it. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is you ask for it as probably as soon as you possibly can, so you don't waste any more time kicking a dead horse, right?
yeah, yeah.
So John, I've got Darius here with me. Darius, you got any questions?
Yes. Hey, John, I got a question for you. I love what you're doing. So nowadays, one big issue is toxic masculinity. So how do you address that in your content, in your course? How do you have men have a healthy level of masculinity?
Yeah. So well, okay, there's a couple of things. So one is I don't participate in vocabulary that I don't agree with, because vocabulary is a way of controlling thoughts, right? So there's a lot of words that have been invented. Toxic masculinity is one of them. Mansplaining is one of them. You know, there's so many of these kind of words that you know, privilege is one of them, right? Or it's been redefined, right? All these things, and they carry with them all of this connotation. And sort of when you use the word, you you can't actually speak except in the vocabulary that you have. So you're actually, you know, speaking into life, almost the thing that so smart people change the vocabulary of things in order to change the thought process and the meaning of things. And so toxic masculinity is one of those things, right? In my opinion, it doesn't actually exist. There is no such thing as toxic masculinity. There's bad behavior. There's being a jerk. There's being an asshole. It's not related to masculinity. It's not related to, you know, masculinity itself, right? If we talk about, there's a really good book by Jack Donovan called The Way of Men. And he talks about the difference between being a good man and being a man. And he says, you don't have to be a good man to be a man. He says, being a man is about honor, virtue, you know, courage, all of these attributes of strength, right? These things. And there's, you know, he uses an example in the book. He says, okay, those guys that flew the plane into the towers, you know, a lot of people say, oh, they're cowards, they weren't men. No, they were, you know, you don't like them, they're evil men, sure, but they were pretty masculine men. I mean, they, like, you know, basically fought for what they believed in and did the thing, a horrible thing, right? Again, but you can't take away their masculine. You can't say, okay, well, these aren't men. No, that masculinity itself is a raw force that could be good or bad, right? So being masculine, now when we talk about being a good man and being effective, it's a totally different thing. So when I teach guys masculinity, I'm teaching them how to use the masculinity for the good, for themselves, for their people. But when we really think about what it comes down to, masculinity and the evolution of it, is it's defending the tribe, right? So who's your tribe? Your tribe is not the whole world, right? You cannot have a tribe that is the whole world. It's the people, it's your family, it's the people that are your friends, that are close to you. And that's where, you know, having that, you know, knowing how to be how to defend, how to fight, how to, you know, do the things that you need to do in order to defend your tribe. It's not about kumbaya and, you know, and that. So
I never even heard that term before.
Yeah.
Okay. But to me, that just sounds like that politically correct crap, that control phrase, like that's hate speech, or that's, you know, right. Am I right? I mean, it's a way to control the, you know, that's the stuff that's invented by those, you know,
like social engineering and stuff like that.
Well, or it might go back. It's just a way to control. I mean, we see it all the time, you know, it's like, I mean, I can get in all kinds of political stuff like that, but that's more of a political term, right? I mean,
exactly.
yeah. So, but so it's kind of like saying, I mean, this is to me defining the difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness. It's kind of like you're commingling them. You know, you're kind of you're putting a negative on masculinity. It's, you know, you could say, I mean, you could just say being a jerk, right? That would be more appropriate, I think.
So,
I mean,
for a term. Yeah. And when you think about, like, a lot of these things, it comes down to, I mean, you can always reverse things. Like, there's so much, like, it's bigotry, right? It's like to associate masculinity with being toxic, just like mansplaining, right? Like the idea of man, like, this is something that men do. Okay. So that's, you know, I mean, like, associating a negative behavior, it's like, it is what it is. It's like, you know, you're basically looking at a characteristic of a person, whether it be their race or their age or their sex or their religion, and then you're defining who they must be like, or some attribute that they, you know, it's just, you know, let's call it what it is. It's bigotry when you do that. So that's why I don't subscribe to any of those terms or any of that thing. It's like, okay, what is it we're trying to address? We're trying to address how men, you know, things, that traps that men fall into. Yeah, there's a lot of traps that men fall into that are not good, that they can learn how to improve. But it's not just men. It's, you know, it's a problem that men are facing, not who they are. And that's, you know, I think that's issues. It confounds the two.
So. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't like those terms either, because I can tell you, even my own girlfriend, you know, we'll fight here and there, and I say, I just say, spit it out. Just say what you want. Say what you mean. You know what I mean? And I won't just say my girlfriend, women in general, sometimes they'll go to more feelings. And I'm like, I like facts. I just do. I like it to be very logical, and you can call me insensitive, or you can say whatever, but I don't like mind reading. And I don't know how and this is maybe something you run into, John, with even the men, because, it's like sometimes with the women, they want you to read their mind. You know what I mean? And I think it's assertive, and I'm assertive. There's no question I'm assertive. I'm like, what do you want? Okay, you're talking around the subject. Spit it out. And I say that to myself too. I don't, even if you read my book, I mean, I can't not, I'm business. And that's a businessman, by the way, a businessman. You just get to the damn point. This is what I want. Can you give it to me? Yes or no? No. Okay, done. Let's move on. Or let's see if we can find a compromise that works. But that would be interesting. Do you have people that come to you, John, and say, how do I deal with this difficult woman that they might care about?
Yeah, for sure. And what I found is that, again, it's like you said, it's like you have to understand the difference of the communication, because women use mostly a covert communication, and
covert. That's a good
overt communication.
Oh, overt.
Right. I tell you exactly what I want. Women. So there's sort of this art to it of understanding, like, how can you speak the language of a woman without being like a woman, right? So a lot of guys actually use covert communication when speaking to a woman. For example, a lot of guys that I coach, their girlfriend or wife doesn't have sex with them as much as they want, so they like do things. So they like push against her, or like or make noises. The humph, they're like, and it's like, all right, it's like the girlfriend knows, the girl's like, yeah, he wants to have sex, he's upset because he's not getting it tonight, and so he's letting me know. And it's like, and then she's like, she's even more turned off. She's like, this guy's a fucking pathetic loser. Like, what the hell? He's throwing a hissy fit like a little girl. So so the answer is to be overt, to be direct, be like, hey, to throw on the bed and say, hey, I want to have sex with you. Or, I mean, to make it clear, your intention is clear, not trying to code communicate this thing. But at the same time, men have to be able to interpret those things and accept them, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to try and turn your woman into a man, right? You don't want to be like, hey, look, you need to give me all the facts and only speak logically, and stop being emotional, because you can turn a woman into a man. She can become masculine, and then she's not going to be attractive, right? Instead, what I coach guys is like, okay, you just have to realize she's an emotional, and appreciate that, but then know how to deal with it. Because if I tell you, like, as the difference between a man conversation, if we're in a conversation, I'm like, look, I don't like you, I don't want to see you again, I mean it. Like, I'm not,
right.
I mean, right. But if a woman says that, I hate you, I don't ever want to see you again, she doesn't mean that. She means that in the moment, because she's driven by her emotion. And so to realize that the things that women are saying, they mean them in the moment. Whereas when men say things, they mean them because we thought about it. We don't say shit that we don't mean, for the most part. Right.
No, you're right.
So,
you're right.
So like
or is that a bulldog? Is that a bulldog you're referring to? Or is that a man period? Or is that a man that is assertive? Or is that a man that is, would an introvert talk like that? Right. I think this is kind of where you're getting at, because you're talking from a bulldog mindset, which I totally relate to, because I'm always saying, just spit it out. I don't want to guess what's in your head. I really don't. I don't like playing the games on that. And when you say, don't turn him into a man, I say, don't turn him into your sister, because it's the same thing. But wow, go ahead. What do you got?
Hey, John, I got another question for you. So,
sure.
So it looks like one of the kind of foundational philosophies with everything is this Stoic philosophy, if that's fair to say. Can you explain to the audience what that is and kind of how that influenced the things that you teach?
Yeah, that was a huge influence on my life. It was I was sort of coming to some of these ideas myself, and then I came across Stoic philosophy. And I was like, this exactly fits. Like, this is a correct way to live your life. So Stoic philosophy, like Stoicism, is basically looking at life and saying, it doesn't matter what happens, it only matters what I do about it. It's like, there's all these things that are outside, I can't control these things, so there's no point in worrying about them. So instead, I'm going to buffer myself from the external world by having all that I need within myself, and then learn to be self-reliant and not worrying about things that I can't control. So stoicism is really becoming internally tough, to becoming resilient, and being able to face adversity head on, and to not shy from adversity, right? So the Stoics sometimes say, things like, pleasure is not a good. Okay. A good is something that you always want. That's always, sometimes pleasure is not good. And hard work is not a bad. Hard work is something that you should strive for. It is a good thing, right? It's something that produces value. And so but that's not how most people think. Most people think if something good happens, that's good. If something bad happens, that's bad. But that's only if you're looking at things from the external world and things you can't control. But if you're looking internally and you say, what my goal is to develop myself, to become stronger, to become better, then what happens externally doesn't matter. It only matters how you interpret things and what you decide. So it's really about taking that power away from fate and circumstances. I think of it as, without Stoic philosophy, it's like you're like a pinball in a pinball machine. You're getting knocked around, whatever, and most people live their life that way. Whatever flipper happens to hit them, or whatever bumper that they run into, that's where they go. And that's how they ended up where they are. If you ask most people what their life story is, they just randomly got put into places. Where as a Stoic philosophy is more like, okay, I'm not going to let all these things, I'm going to control where I'm going deliberately. And sure, things might hit me or knock me off my course, but that doesn't define my fate. That doesn't define who I am. And I'm taking responsibility for my life.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. So, John, I say this, I tell this to my kids, and really you're kind of saying it in other words, and that is, bottom line is, a good life is by design.
Right. Yeah.
And, and you're the designer. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody cares more than you. And you got to take action. But so, John, this has been an awesome interview. I really learned a lot just about you and what you do. And maybe you want to take a minute here and tell people where they can go and to learn more.
Yeah, just go to bulldogmindset.com. There'll be a pop-up for a quiz. It'll tell you what your Bulldog score is. So just take that quiz. 10 questions will tell you what your score is from 0 to 100. And then I'll send you some follow-up information on how to raise that score, and you can see the videos and everything. So just go to bulldogmindset.com.